Welcome back to our 25th episode of the Launch Your Farm Show, where I interview Kiran Gandhi with Agent Consulting. In this episode, Kiran and I talk about why agents need to find their platform and how what you do with it will define your success. Kiran also shares how to create the right message for your ideal audience and your farm. We also talk about what you can do to connect to your audience with conversation that creates engagement rather than focusing on useless metrics. We also share a super easy way to use stories to build your brand and connect with your audience. And Kiran talks about how to leverage your day-to-day life to create content for your audience that will resonate with them and keep them coming back for more. Plus, a ton of other ideas that you can use to grow your geographic farm. So be sure to check out this episode, like and subscribe, and enjoy the episode with Kiran. Welcome back to another episode of the Launch Your Farm Show. I'm your host, Ryan Smith, and today we've got a great guest. It's Kiran Gandhi from Agent Consulting. So Kiran, take a second, tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about your business.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for having me. I really appreciate it. And hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here on this episode today. I have been in the industry for almost 10 years now, so quite some time. And I've seen the industry from various facets. I actually started at the front desk of an office, which was about almost 10 years ago, which is also around the time when I moved to Canada. And the industry's just treated me really well. Since then, I've just moved up in different roles. I ran my own team here in the GTA. And I was one of the training consultants for one of the bigger brands here in North America. And about a couple of years ago, I decided to go full time with my consulting because it's something that I, throughout my last 10 years, found myself doing naturally anyway. I was asked to do trainings. I would be, approached by agents all the time in order to consult them speaking. So I just felt myself really drawn towards that side. So 2 years ago, I launched my company, Agent Consulting, and here we are.
Awesome. So your background is a teacher, so that bodes well with the consulting and the training,
Yes.
obviously.
Yeah, I used to be a teacher in the UK. I used to teach secondary students, which I always joke about the fact that, secondary students, which is basically high school students, and real estate agents are very similar, in terms of the temperaments and, how you have to discipline them. But yeah.
That's awesome. So what made you get into real estate from working at the front desk? What made you take that step in and jump right into real estate?
Honestly, just the potential, just the sheer potential of what is possible. And now we're talking about 10 years ago, and a lot has changed in our industry in the last 10 years from what I've witnessed. And I feel just even at that time when I was looking at what can be done, the possibilities in the marketing field, and actually, being out there and the growth and the potential, I was like, I got to tap into this.
That's good. So now you're doing consulting and you're helping agents. What does it look like for you? Like, what type of things are you helping with? And then I want to dive into how we can actually help our agents and our viewers.
100%. So one of the things that I practiced what I preach. So everything that I teach now in my courses and my one-on-one consulting, in my training sessions, are things that I've either implemented myself when I was running my own team, or I have proven results from my own clients now that have been working with me for a few years. So mostly we focus around the conversion side of things. So conversion systems, business systems, those are two things that I really work a lot, and they go hand in hand. So I always start with, okay, are you running a business, or are you just kind of going from one transaction to another transaction? Yep. So I have of what I do versus shifting agents' minds from a transactional one to a business one. So I have courses that focus on helping agents set up business systems, operational systems, marketing systems, conversion systems, and things like that. So that is one of my primary areas. And then I have one program which focuses entirely on helping new agents getting set up. So it's called the New Agent Accelerator, and that is for brand new agents. Because one of the things that I found was when I first got into the industry, is many years, many mistakes later, is that there are fundamental things that you need to learn and know as you get into the industry that you don't necessarily learn. There are skills more on the practical side of things. And of course, the marketing and social media is something that I was always very passionate in. I have a degree in that, I have a background in that. And I am so passionate about using different platforms in innovative ways in order to leverage them for your business growth.
That's awesome. Yeah. And my experience with new agents, they get excited. They don't learn actually how to run a business. They learn how to not get sued. They get started. And depending on what brokerage they end up with, or if they try to go on their own, or if they work with a team, depending on the team they end up on, it's here's your license, go, good luck.
Go figure it out. Go figure it out.
And there's a lot of trial and error. And then if they learn the right things in place at the beginning, they could speed up that process, save themselves a lot of time and stress and hassle. And that's part of why I'm so passionate about farming, because I think anyone can jump into farming at any time and build that system out. So for you, I know one of the big things you mentioned is social media. And that's what I want to kind of dive into today, and how agents can be using social media to really build a brand around themselves and build the brand around their farm. So what, if you're getting started thinking of farming as a new agent, what would that look like if you're just getting launched?
I think one of the I think fundamentally, I work a lot with the why before the how.
Right.
And I think one of the mistakes that our industry agents, and I think everybody really, when they're trying to learn and acquire a new skill, make, is they jump straight to the how. How do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? Give me this, give me this, give me this.
Yep.
And they miss a very crucial aspect, and that is the why, the strategy, the actual representatives, but a lot really don't take the stand and dissect what this platform does. I'm going to give you an example, which is kind of unrelated, but I'll bridge the gap. When I first started in this business, I was 16 when I started my first sales job. It was making cold calls. I was in a call center at 16, and this is now a very long time ago, almost 20 years ago. So I there are, the way that I look at any kind of platform is like an empty stage. I did my first 7 transactions as a new agent within 3 months of being licensed from a Walmart kiosk. And that was a kiosk that our company had, like a kiosk in Walmart where people take their groceries out in February, which is like, and nobody wants to talk to me because it's snowing outside, and everybody's just like, get the hell out of our face, woman. Like, we do not want to speak to you about real estate. We've got heavy grocery bags. So, and nobody wanted to slot at that kiosk. And I was like, I will take it. I'll take anything, because the way that I looked at that was like an empty stage and a platform.
Yep.
What I do with that is going to determine the results I get or don't get. And people get stuck with, oh, the kiosk doesn't work. And the same psychology applies to social media.
Yep.
It is merely a platform. It is an empty stage. What you do with it will determine your success on it or not. And this is a very fundamental thing that people need to understand when they say, oh, Facebook doesn't work, Instagram doesn't work. No, it's you that's not working. It's your strategy that's not working.
Exactly.
The platform cannot do that for you.
Yeah.
And this is very crucial for people to understand. I think this is where they miss they'll think, there's a lot we can obviously get into, but that is like one of the main basic foundational things, is look at it as an empty stage and then decide how you want it to work for you. Now, as far as farming is concerned, I think farming, in other words, is find a niche. Find a niche. You cannot be the jack of all, it shouldn't be the jack of all trades. And I think when we're looking at the consumer, today's consumer, building out a profile of who you're going to be working with, who you're targeting, understanding that persona really in depth from all different aspects, and then gearing your content towards that, whether it's geographic or whether you're picking a segment, will again help you use that empty stage and speak to the right people and be more connected. See, a vague message that's put out through social media is not really going to resonate with people. But when you're really targeted, again, through farming, which is, very similar in alignment, you are then addressing the right people. When you speak to me directly in whatever way, like, and we see relevant ads all the time. This is what they're doing. And this is what we have to do as marketers. We have to shift. We have to put our marketing hat on. We have to start approaching this entire subject from that angle. Yeah,
it's one of the things I've preached since I've been doing the business, is that the right message makes the difference and the right approach makes a difference. I share that people say, well, door knocking doesn't work. And I said, well, the right message and the right pitch at the door can make the difference. It takes the same amount of time and energy and resources to go to the door with the right approach or the wrong approach. And the same with postcards. If you're doing postcards, the right message on a postcard versus the wrong message can make a difference. The right social media post and the wrong social media post costs the same to get in front of people, but the right approach will speed up things, will make the process easier. You'll convert better, and you'll convert at a higher rate. And in my opinion, that's why I like farming, because you can tailor your message. Like you mentioned, is you can really choose who you're going after. If it's your geographic farm, you then can create a message that resonates and connects with those people. If I say I'm trying to be the GTA specialist, no one's going to care.
I hate that word.
And then you have people, and you see on their website, and they say, I serve, then there's like everywhere. A whole list. The list of where they serve is longer than the content on their website, because they just say they serve everywhere. And when you become that go-to person, you can create the message and you can create the social media posts and you can create the content that really connect with people and will give you that huge advantage over anyone else just coming in and saying, I'm the best.
I know. And you're absolutely right. I hate the term GTA specialist. I actually use that as well. I was like, if you are a GTA specialist, you're really not. I'm like, you can barely be a city specialist, because that in itself is a massive thing. You can't be. You have to narrow it down. And I think if we, in all fairness to agents who, again, like, they're never really taught, unless they have that background, bring those transferable skills from other jobs that they've done. If they've run a business, most people don't bring those skills and don't have that level of understanding that they can bring to the business, where they can understand, listen, you're not going to be missing out on business by focusing down. One of the exercises that I like to do with my clients is I like for them to be like, okay, why don't you pick an area and look at the number of transactions that have happened in the area over the last year? Now, what's your goal? And that puts things into perspective, because a lot of people think that the more they scatter their efforts as opposed to concentrating it, the more they're increasing their chances. They think that they're, by eliminating per se, other areas, they're decreasing their success rate, which is really not the case. Because, and I always like to give that example of, and I heard it somewhere, but I haven't verified it. And I think, but the company, what's it called? Big furniture company. I have a brain fart right now. Wayfair. They sell everything under the sun. But from what I've heard is that they started with selling just one product, which was closets. And then they fully took over that market, understood, built a process around it, and that's how they can then replicate it. And we see that happen in our industry with various teams, larger teams, for example, who maybe started in one town or in a part of a town. They really just grew. They took their time and farmed the area. And then once they had their footing, then they can, then they have the infrastructure, more agents, more manpower to then maybe grow in another area. But you got to do it first in one area, and you got to really grow, and you got to give it that time. But yeah, I mean, I understand, like, from an agent's perspective, they might think, oh, but I'm eliminating possibilities, or I'm shutting doors on people. You're really not.
It's the fear of missing out, and they think that there's more business they're going to get. And in my experience, the agents who really double down and go small get more business, and like you said, can then scale up. And a question I get asked all the time is, how many homes should I choose in my farm? And people say, well, shouldn't I do more? And I say, well, I'd rather you focus on 1,000 homes, get your systems in place, get things working, figure it out on that scale, and then go to 2,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 homes. But if you try at 5,000, and you fail, you're failing at 5 times the rate. So I'd rather see you scale and fail at 1 times, and then figure it out, get through that, find out what's resonating, what's working, and then you can always scale up. And that's where you'll see the biggest increase, is once you have it in place, then you can scale. And that's
if it works with 1,000 people, it'll work with 5,000 people. If it doesn't, it's not gonna. And we see this across the spectrum. A good friend of mine who's a dentist did the same thing. He opened one practice, put this practice to a place where it was he had formula. It's like you have a operational handbook. It's like, take it, copy and paste and apply it into another place, and it'll grow. And that's how you scale.
Exactly.
But you got to do it with a smaller area first. And I think it's, again, I don't blame people, because I think, especially if we're speaking about the GTA, the sheer amount of competition, it scares people away. But it's also proof that, listen, other people are doing it. And I always say this, just because you see someone's face a lot in an area doesn't mean that they're actually dominating an area. Like, doing well in an area versus having bus bench ads are totally different things,
And that's a perfect example. And I'm not going to say the agent's name, but there's an agent in a town that has a huge billboard. Everyone knows the billboard. If you mentioned the billboard, people know who it is, and they because they see it. It's on one of the busiest intersections in the area, and everyone knows that billboard. And then you look at the neighborhoods around it, and this agent has done like 1 deal in that neighborhood. But then you look at, there's a condo building that this agent actually farms and mails out to and does stuff, and he has a number of sales in that building. So the billboard itself doesn't mean you're going to get the business. It's the subsequent follow-up. It's the additional messaging. It's that real connection that he's creating within that. So a lot of agents see big agents and see that they've got the billboards and the park benches and those kind of things, and then go, well,
Mm,
they're successful because they have those. And in reality, in my experience,
exactly.
that's not what got them there. That's what they do to try to keep
Yeah.
themselves there. And like you
Yeah.
mentioned, if they went back to what they started with when they mastered that small little town or little pocket and then scaled up, if they did that and replicated that, they would have way more success. And
Mm-hmm.
agents
100%.
see the stuff, like you said, they see the public side of it and then think that's
Yeah.
what's getting them there. So
A
same with
hundred
social
percent.
media.
And it's perception, and same with social media. And I was going to say the same thing, but it's like it gives them this fake dopamine hit, thinking that
Yeah.
they've done something and they've achieved something, when
Yeah.
really you got to figure out. And this is a question I think every agent needs to ask themselves: is, do you want to be famous, or do you want to make money? Like,
Yeah.
really, do you want to be famous? Because you can buy your way up in this business.
Yeah.
Or do you actually, and what I always say to agents is, look at your bottom line. That's ultimately what matters, is your bottom line. It's not the illusion. And it gives people this this false sense of, I'm doing something, when they have literally nothing to show for it
Yeah.
in terms of actual business. And yeah, and I think a lot of agents get caught up in that
Yeah.
false sense of like, oh, achievement, which really is an achievement. And the same thing goes for social media. I think this, segues really well into social media. Is
Yeah.
just because you're putting stuff on social media doesn't mean that, what is that content getting you? How much engagement are you getting? How many conversations are starting as a result of that
Yeah.
content? And that's what people really need to think about, is, okay, well, if you can put just listed, just sold, open house, pretty pictures up, and your profile can appear professional, but how many conversations are starting as a
Yeah.
result of it? How much business are you getting from it? And I once did because for me, my business, even previously and now, when I post content, I start conversations with it. My stories are the biggest conversation starters for me on Instagram and on Facebook. My stories are probably the biggest conversation starters for people. And I often get, a big chunk of my discovery calls, which is the initial stage before I work with somebody, that get booked through those stories, where people go, oh, okay, I'm going to book a call with you. Oh, this is really interesting. And then they start talking to me, and then they book a call with me. But yeah, we can talk about social media, of course, more in a more structured way. But um, it's like with anything else, right? Like I said, it's an empty stage. What you do with it, who you speak to, is going to determine. And, we have to really look at the audience and ask ourselves, what is it that they would find interesting? What
Yeah.
questions are people asking me? And it's really less complicated than people think.
Yes.
This isn't about, like, there isn't a magic wand that anybody can wave to make social media work for you. And it's not the prettier it looks, the more it's going to work. It's basically, the more valuable your content is, and the more people care about the things that you're talking about, the more it's going to resonate, the more you're going to get business from it. And it's that simple. And I think when people think to themselves, oh, I have to do something different or new. No, you just have to do the right thing more frequently,
Yeah.
and then keep doing it,
Yeah.
and then stick with it even when it doesn't work.
Yep.
And I think that's like one of the biggest things that people don't realize, is they keep looking for the new magic trick and the new kind of way and new strategy. It really isn't. There really isn't any such thing. It really is just who are you speaking to? Who do you want? What do they care about? What questions do they ask you? How can you solve those problems for them? Create content geared around that, and don't give up when it doesn't work the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth. Like, you got to stay consistent with it.
I think for me, my experience has been that the mistake that agents make is that they miss out on what social media is. It's social media, and they
Yeah.
use it as just a marketing platform. And I talk about farming all the time, where traditional
Mhm.
farming was get your name out there, push your name out there, and it's push your message, and rather
Yeah.
than having conversations. And we have such an awesome opportunity now with social media and online to create those conversations, to create engagement, to create connections. And people miss that ball, or they miss that boat because they are so focused on just pushing the message. And I would say it's the difference between speaking with and speaking at. If I go to a party and I'm the guy at the party and telling everyone, I'm
Yeah.
awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, I'm awesome, people are going to like, shut up, who's this guy? Don't ever invite him back. But if you go to the party and you start mingling, you talk to people and you get to know people and you have those small little conversations, then people know Ryan's a
Mhm.
great guy. Oh, I really like Ryan. And with social media, the mistake that agents make is they see it as just a marketing platform. And there's a
Mhm.
component of it that is definitely there, but it's like, you're meant to engage. And like you said, find out what the client wants, what's engaging to them, what's important to them, and we want to connect with them on the level of things that they want to see and read. And
Mhm.
I use, again,
Mhm.
another example is I talk about, if I post I had a sandwich today and I share my sandwich, you might get a few likes. But if I said, hey, I had a bologna sandwich today, what sandwich did you have? Or what's your favorite sandwich? Now I'm getting them to share and engage. And when you connect with the people and ask them to be social, it just opens it up and you get way
Mhm.
more connection and way more
A
conversations.
100%. 100%. And it's all about that engagement. I think people get so caught up in the vanity metrics side of
Yeah.
things where they just look at, oh, how many likes did I get versus, and this is what I've been saying, how many conversations
Yeah.
started as a result of it. And this is what the key measure it, because it's those conversations that are going to lead to conversions ultimately. Without a conversation, there is no conversion. Again, that fake dopamine hit, which you can get lots of hits and
Yeah.
lots of likes and lots of views. But really, as a result of that, how many people are actually triggered to have conversations with you? And you've made a really good point. A good way to structure your posts, of course, is to have a call to action, worth like a question or something
Yep.
at the end, which prompts people to respond. Because people, unless you ask specifically for them to say something, most people don't comment, right? Like most people don't say anything, most people don't respond. You have to ask people very directly, very specifically what it is that you'd like for them to say. And this is a good this is something that I've seen happen personally for me as well. If I look at the success rate from conversions and conversations specific from comments on posts versus stories,
Mm.
and which is why I've personally pushed stories so much, and I still do, is because I feel with stories, the conversations that begin are one-on-one with you, as opposed to when you post something on social media, it's just a post and people are commenting
Right.
on it, but a lot of, and that's public, and that's
Right.
just, it's a public thread. But when someone responds to a story, they are starting that's such a big opportunity for you to one-on-one have a conversation and begin a thread of future conversations with that one person. And people, it's just easier for people to respond, and they know that whatever, a lot of people are shy, and we have to, some people would say something but they don't necessarily.
Yep.
A lot of people are conscious on social media. They will look at what other people are posting, what other people have said, and then they'll kind of either weigh in or not, or stay very, but whereas with stories, everybody knows the response goes directly to the person. So
Right.
that's why I think it's a massive opportunity. We actually have a course on stories as well, which I launched specifically on stories along with my business partner and good friend who's in the business using stories phenomenally. And we do trigger a lot of the times, okay, ask a lot of questions in your
Hmm.
stories, make people guess things, like make it fun and engaging but stay informative at the
Yep.
same time with your content. And one thing that agents miss on social media is the day-to-day opportunity that they have when they're out in the field, and even when they're sitting in front of a computer. Every conversation you have in your head, or with somebody, or with your partner, or with a colleague, is probably an opportunity for you to create a piece of content out of it and
Yeah.
just quickly post it on social media.
Yeah.
And they
Exactly.
don't have to overthink it. They really don't. And people care, and we think people don't care, but people care about these nitty gritty behind the scenes.
Yes.
Are just on a day to day, when doing our MLS research, when we're out there looking at properties, people care about these things. So show them, be the one to show them.
Yeah. Yeah, some of my best posts and most engaging things were just my stupid little thoughts that pop in my head, like something silly, or I thought of
Yeah.
something, and then I post, and people go, "Yeah, I thought that too," and yeah, you're not the only one that thinks that. I think that way too, and it creates that engagement. So, yeah, when you can,
Yeah, and that resonance.
exactly. If you're just pushing the same real estate message that houses are low in inventory, sales are high, interest rates are low, like that gets drowned
Yeah.
out, and people don't really care and don't want to talk to you about that because they see it everywhere. So
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think there are certain notions that real estate agents should always stay clear from. One, the whole doomsday idea of real estate
yeah,
and trying to kind of feed into that media narrative. I think what you should be doing as an agent is be real, be the real voice. When I used to go to listing presentations, I didn't always walk in thinking, oh, this person's got to sell. We walked in thinking, let's hear them out.
yeah,
Maybe they need to sell, maybe they don't.
yeah,
Our job is not to convince them. If we thought somebody shouldn't sell right now, we would point blank tell them, we don't think you should sell right now.
mm,
And I think that is the honesty with which you got to approach everything. When you start to feed fear into people or feed into like any of those narratives as an agent, if you're going to do it, if you're going to make a claim like that, make sure that you are backing it with facts and stats and proving it, because that's something that people can't argue. Like, don't just push out opinions just because a media outlet, this is, I see a lot of agents do this. And every time I'm just like shaking my head, I'm just like, don't do this, because just because XYZ News pushed an article saying, oh my God, this is happening.
Yeah.
Where's your 2 cents in this?
Yeah, exactly. And
we have to.
We have a huge opportunity, especially if you're doing farming, to be at that local level and explain to people what that means. And people will hear a stat on sales are down, and they'll say, well, sales are down. The general public may think that means prices are dropping. We have an opportunity to explain to what that means. And then from a local level, what does that mean for you? And because we all know real estate's hyper local, like prices and markets are very different.
Everything, yeah.
So
You go a street over and it's different. Exactly. And I say this all the time. I go, you look at this main artery, look south and look north. You've got 2 different markets. You can't compare one to the other, and they're walking distance from each other. You can't do it. You're absolutely right. And I think this is something, what I used to do I mean, social media has been around, of course, since I've been in this business, but it's become very big. It wasn't as big when I was at the beginning of my sales days. And I remember anytime a newspaper article would come, and we'd just be like, oh, okay, now I got to send this link. These are my clients. They're all going to read it. They're all going to start panicking. So my ritual would just be to text them the article first thing in the morning and just be like, I'm going to call you later to talk about this, because I knew I'd have to give them that context behind whatever fear mongering was going on. And social media now and stories are a beautiful way for you to actually give that message out to the masses and really weigh in on it. And it's not just the content, you said it, it's about, what does this mean for me, the buyer? It's the context behind it. And if you can use the platform just to provide the context, that's more important than anything else. I think that's more important than anything else. And it's, we get so caught up in the aesthetic of how our posts look or how everything looks. It's really, let's not get so caught up with that and really focus on giving people context. And there are so many opportunities on a daily basis that we have to provide valuable content to to the audience that we want to engage with.
So that's perfect. I want to dive into the content itself. I want to discuss what types of things are working. You're so big on metrics and measuring success and then the conversions. If you were to pick 3 or 5 types of content that really works well, what would you suggest?
Okay. So take every opportunity in the field that you have. That I'm going to take one piece, for example. One is behind the scenes content. Okay. It works really well. People engage with it. It shows people the real side of real estate. It shows people beneath the kind of, oh, everything is perfect, everything is pretty. And speaking about behind the scenes, showing them how you work, how you do your day-to-day, what goes on behind the scenes is the type of content that I find people engage with a fair bit and enjoy quite a bit. The other type of content that people like a lot is problems that are solved. And the psychology behind that is that people like to work with agents who know how to solve problems. They need to know that you as an agent have the ability, are honest enough to be like, okay, well, here's an issue with a home, or here's an issue with a transaction, and here's how we solved it. So once you actually, almost like a case study, if you're open and okay enough to speak about it and share about some of the things that do go south when we go through a transaction, it's like having a bad testimonial or a bad review that you then address, which increases the faith that the audience has with you versus, have the contra effect on it.
Yeah, that's great. So what type of thing would you suggest in that realm? Like, what type of things are you talking about? Because some agents may not understand.
For example, if you're at a home inspection and that's a huge opportunity. I think if you're doing a home inspection and follow that home inspector around, if there is a problem that happens in a transaction and you may have to negotiate on behalf of your buyer client at that point to see talk about it. You can then, with the consent of your client, you don't have to disclose the property, you don't have to disclose who your client is, but you can use that opportunity. You can shoot a quick video and share that with your clients. Be like, oh, you know what, I've had a day today, and so and then just share the story. We're walking through a home inspection. This happened, that happened, and this is how we typically mitigate it. Or you're in a multiple offer situation, because that's so common. And, if you have an experience which, wasn't very pleasant, but talk, because people want to know. No one believes anything that's too good to believe.
Right.
Ultimately, when agents try to show that everything is like paint this rosy picture, it becomes less and less believable, because we're working with a very skeptical audience. We're very skeptical as human beings these days. We don't believe anything.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'll give you an example. Like when I go out there and I talk about my pseudo transaction, it's not a pretty story, but it builds credibility with my audience. It builds that bond with my audience when I share it. There is, and it shows the real side of things. And I like to use the analogy of just watch any HGTV show. What is the pattern that you see in HGTV? People watch HGTV, right?
Yeah.
What is it that they're showing them? They're showing them there's always there is this desire, there is a problem, but then they solve the problem. And that is the nature of content that, you have an opportunity through stories specifically to show that type of content, of course. Now, those are the two. So behind the scenes, and then kind of walking people, sharing anything that kind of goes south is of course great. And I'm talking out of the box because we all know, talk about properties, show them listings, like those things are common. Everybody already knows about this, but this is a little bit outside of the box that people are a little hesitant to speak about. Engagement, what's great for engagement is asking people to weigh in on things. For example, you could be out doing a showing and you could see a really interesting layout. You can take a video of that layout and be like, what do you think of this layout? Like, do you think it's functional? Would you live here? Would you not? So things like that, which are fun and engaging and day to day. And see, the thing is, they show that you're active in the field. You don't have to be like, oh, I'm so busy. Like if you're posting things about the fact that you're at properties and showing them interesting things that you're picking up, maybe it's a layout, maybe it's a stove, maybe it's how they've organized the closets, maybe it's something interesting that you're picking up day to day, that's already implying the fact that you are working in the business. You're busy. You don't have to say it, so that kind of fun content is really great, and it's a great way for you to engage with your audience as well. Yeah, I think, just being really real and showcasing those opportunities. I actually have like a whole list of types of content that people can show. Views are fantastic. If you're out doing condos, people love to see different views. There's just so much opportunity on a day-to-day that you can capture, I feel.
Yeah, I think
because
rather than just doing just listed, just sold, which everyone sees and everyone does, if you're out showing, like you said, they're out seeing the property and they see that you're out doing those things, they know you're doing that. And they know, because people think, well, they have to know what I'm doing because I'm doing what I just listed and just sold. It's like, no, there's a lot of other ways to engage them and still show them that you're active and get them involved and bring them along on the process, and not just say I sold this or just listed that.
Exactly. For sure. And stories about properties, right? Like, I mean, flips is another great piece of content that people love to hear about, learn about. People are obsessed with that, They really want to hear. So if there was a home that, when you're doing your research on MLS, maybe there was a home that, was bought 3 years ago and they've done a huge, gut job on it and now it looks amazing. Show them the before and afters. Talk about that. And then that's a great opportunity for you to be like, hey, look at this home. This is what it looked like 3 years ago. Look at it right now. And then that gives you an opportunity to dissect the numbers and be like, hey, by the way, like here's how that translates into numbers. Again, case studies, numbers, like things that people actually will look at. And you have to think about it. What does it show about you? Not what you're saying about yourself, but what does that demonstrate about you? Demonstrate that you're analytical, you have attention to detail, you have problem solving skills, all of the things that people want in their agent. And using your content to demonstrate that rather than shouting it from the rooftop and just claiming it, I think is really, really important. I've seen agents with pre-construction have great success with stories as well, rather than just being like, oh, we're launching this, here it is, just go to the site, take videos, show them what's coming up. There's so much opportunity within that as well. I used to do that pre-story. Stories was not a thing when I was selling. And I really wish it was. But yeah, I know I keep saying stories, but I just think that, if I look at social media right now, and when people, the way that people go on the platform and the way that they navigate it, I feel like the static posts that you have are not as it's not as important for you to post every day as like previously it may have been. Now it's more of a post stories multiple times a day, and you can get away with not posting on your profile so often. Because when people look at your profile, they just browse it. They don't necessarily click on the photos and look at what the text or the content is. Most people, when they discover a new person's profile, they'll kind of just do this up and down, just kind of take a quick look, and then they'll click on the story. And that's the content that's they engage with more.
In the marketing world, there's a term called soap opera sequence, and people create, well, if you go back to why soap operas are created, it was created to sell products. So they created a story, and you said like, there's a drama and there's a issue, and it goes through and it just keeps going. And stories is a great opportunity for that, where you can create that story to continually go on and on and on, and people can check in. And there are people I follow on social media, and it's like, I know they're going to post something good. I know it's going to be entertaining, or it's going to be a continuation of yesterday. They're going to talk about something else that happened, and now they're going to share the follow-up, and you're left in suspense wondering what's going on, and you want to check in on it. So that creates those followers that actually want to see what's going on a regular basis, which is awesome.
100%. And I think and you'll start to see a lot of people will watch, a lot more people proportionately will watch your story than will actually engage with your posts, because it's just the way it is. You will get a lot more. Like for me, I get at least 30 to 40% of my followers watch my story.
Wow.
And that's massive. That is massive. Yeah. And a lot of them are not even like, towards the bottom, I'll see a lot of people that are not even following me, or just be like, okay, that's really interesting, And then I'll sometimes, and the discovery calls, or the people that actually end up reaching out to me and connecting with me, are people I often don't even know. They're just getting to know me through my content. But I think, one thing I want to say again is, like, there are so many opportunities in the field. Like, let's just say, for example, when you're doing showings, when you're behind the scenes, when you're listing a property, everything, like, again, behind the scenes, how do we look at everything that goes, look at what I do, look at how staging works, look at how decluttering works. Like, people want to know these things. And these are all great opportunities for your day-to-day to really get that content. So it doesn't have to add to the burden, if you will. I think the more casual our content that people engage with has become more casual, less formal, and more authentic and less formal. That's the kind of content people want to engage with anyway. So that actually takes the pressure off of us to having to make it look super pretty, as opposed to just having it be relevant, And that's another thing that people start to be like, oh my God, I don't have time to. Well, you do, because if you're out there, all you need to do, and I always give people this tip, is create a folder on your phone where, as you're going through your day, you take pictures or quick videos as you go along. So you have that content, like you always have content. And what you make of it is, of course, the ultimate thing. And another thing I want to say is, and there's so many things I want to say, but one thing I want to say, which is really interesting, is if you know Seth Godin, right? He talked about, I was in a private mastermind, and he talked about his first podcast that he launched. And he said he had 2 listeners to his first podcast, but that didn't stop him from launching one every week. And I think this is what I want to say to people. If you're posting stories, if you're posting content on your social media, and you're not getting a lot of viewers and you're not getting a lot of engagement, shouldn't stop. Keep building it, because it takes time. That's really important. And that really stuck with me, because, that's something that we often use as an excuse to just say to ourselves, oh, we don't need to do it. It doesn't work. No, we don't have that many viewers.
And I think too, like you said, is thinking outside the box instead of just the typical real estate stuff can make a difference, especially from that community level where you are out and about, you're doing your life, you're doing your things, and you can share that. I posted for a while, I was testing out some stuff with Google reviews and leaving comments and posting and stuff like that. And I was out in a conservation park, and there was these chairs, or the tables were stacked up for the winter, and there were like 50 picnic tables all lined up, but it looked like they were all giving each other massages, just the way it was, like it was arm. So I took a picture of it, I shared it and said, this is hilarious. And I posted on a Google review for the thing. That photo has had more views than any other photos in that area, and people like it and comment, and it's just this ridiculous thing. And it's like, so if you can live your life as you're going along and share those funny things you see, the interesting things you come across in the community, the people you come
Hmm.
across. Like you said, it doesn't have to be this super formal real estate related specific stuff. It can be just life around what you're doing, life in the community, and people will resonate with that because it's part of their life too. So
It is. It really is. And I think you've raised a good point. And when it comes to farming, I mean, like I said, so stories weren't a thing when I was selling, but when we had our team, we ran around and did videos in the whole community. That was content we were, people care about. People
yeah,
want to, and it's a great opportunity for you to actually connect with the local businesses.
yeah,
It resulted in us actually collaborating with local businesses and have them host, maybe it was the local Benjamin Moore, just come and, come by our open houses, talk about wallpapers, little interesting things
yeah,
like that, which, all community related. It's twofold. One, people care about the fact that you care about the community and are
yeah,
supporting local businesses. And the other thing is that you get a chance to connect with these local businesses. I did it very formally. We hired a videographer at the time and we did like videos in all these like hidden gems of our little town, which a lot of people don't talk about, and they love it and we love it. And that's again content that people do, they do care about it. And with stories now, you can take it that next level. Like you can give them a shout out, you can tag them, you can be tagged in the location. And the more you tag your location in your stories, the more you're going to show up in the discover section of, for example, Instagram, where
yeah.
local people will start discovering you. And that's again content that really people do care about
I think
and engage
businesses
with.
focusing on businesses, I've been pushing this for a long time,
Mhm.
but especially since COVID hit, that so
Yeah.
many people are that much more aware of the local businesses and wanting to support local. And there's literally petitions to
Yeah.
stop supporting the big box stores and help these local businesses. So they're in the spotlight that much more. And it's an opportunity for you to really become
Mhm.
that ambassador for the community and for those
Oh
local
yeah.
businesses. And it doesn't have to cost you a fortune. It's literally your phone. You can go shoot a quick interview, showcase it. You don't even have to go interview anyone. You can just say, I was here. It was awesome. Here's the experience I had, and share that as part of your story. And that's a great way
It
to
is
get out there.
honestly such a great way to get out there. Schools is another one. Schools
Yeah.
is a massive one in a community, like especially with farming related. I started doing interviews with principals and vice principals of schools in our area to be, hey, let's talk about the school.
Yeah.
Like, what extracurricular activities do you have? And we, again, depending on the demographic, of course, like for us, it was families, the suburban kind of typical areas. And we knew most people here would factor in schools quite
Yeah.
significantly when making their decision of where they're going to move. So we knew that that was content that would resonate with people significantly. So we wait and, again, we have to ask ourselves, what do people care about? Not what do we care about? And for a very long time in our industry, I think one of the mental barriers that a lot of people, especially those who've been in the business for a long time, have is this kind of gatekeeper mentality to well, if we tell them what
Yeah.
the ROI looks like, well, if we give them, well, if we show them everything, well, the thing is, if you don't, someone else will.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's, and your value proposition has to be more than that.
Yeah. Or you have to know it that much more. And I would say with your farm,
Yeah.
if you're not going to share it, which I think you should, I would say give the people what they want to know it. You have to know it better than them because they're going to find it. And if it's
Yeah.
not you giving them, and if it's not you sharing it to them, they'll find it from someone else. So you have to be the person who is the sharer of that information, because
Yeah.
if they go, oh, so-and-so gave it to me and you're
Yeah.
supposed to be the expert and you say you focus on this area and you didn't even give me that information, I'd rather work with
Yeah.
that person. So
Go beyond Google. Honestly, go beyond Google. What constrictions, what signs, what weird. One thing I always say to agents, and this is something we used to do, this is how I learned it, is physically be present in your area. So take drives. I used to take daily drives in the morning. My business partner taught me that. He's like, go to take daily drives and open your eyes, because we're so on autopilot when we're driving, especially if we live in the same community that we farm, that we are so like, we just kind of walk with our blinders and we're not really paying attention. Pay attention. Take an hour in the morning, half an hour in the morning. Pay attention. If you see a funny sign, something's coming up, there's a phone number on it, call the number. Figure out what's coming up there. Talk to people. Have the information that other people don't have access to.
yeah.
Who is the local counselor? Like, can you get in touch with, talk to people, talk to businesses, talk to ambassadors, talk to those people, because you're going to get access to information that they can't find on Google. And that's what's going to give you the value.
Exactly.
That's where the importance comes in, right? And I think this is something that a lot of agents should do. And that gives them so much content just to talk about. Guess what's coming up here? Any guesses? You could put that on your story, and meanwhile you can give them the answer 5 hours later.
Yeah, it's awesome. So
Yeah.
I want to wrap up with your best piece of advice. If someone's thinking about jumping in and using stories for social media and their farm, what's one piece of advice that you'd say they must do?
Stay consistent. This is such a cliche, but do it badly, suck at it, find it hard. Don't be wanting to do it and do it anyway.
Yeah.
And keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. I promise you, there is no magic wand anybody can wave. Don't outsource it. Don't outsource this. Get involved. Look at this. Don't look at doing social media as something that you have to do or should do for the sake of doing. Look at it as a prospecting opportunity and something that's very easily scalable, something that is very effective because people are present. Look at it as that stage where you have an opportunity rather than something that you're just doing for the sake of doing. Change your mindset towards it and then push through the lack of whatever excuses that come up and do it anyway, and then keep doing it. Because like I said, there isn't a magic formula that will work for you. It is just the sheer understand what people care about, you constantly and consistently talking about the things that they care about, and then just keep doing it. And you'll see results, or the results will come.
99% of agents won't stick with it, and you
That's
will be the
problem.
shining star. So take that to your advantage, because if you're consistent, most people won't. So you'll be the person they'll go to.
Yeah. And the problem is when something doesn't work for us, we start looking at we'll go to a convention and we'll get bags from 50 different people, and we'll just shiny object syndrome, typically speaking, right? Like we'll just do randomly a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. No, we've told you what works.
Yeah.
The things that we're talking about that are opportunities every day that you have, even from just doing research on MLS to doing home inspections to walking through staging to being at a home renovation, anything.
Yeah.
All of these are opportunities on a daily basis that you have. Just talk about them on your stories and keep talking about them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's one book that you would recommend that's either impacted your life or would impact our viewers' lives?
Oh, wow. So many. Good. Atomic Habits. Those are two that I can think of off my head.
You cut out there. I just heard Atomic Habits.
Is probably one of the. Okay, yeah. Atomic Habits is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's I think just for me, I love that book. So that's, if you haven't read it, read it. And the E-Myth is really, really good. The Entrepreneur Myth is a fantastic book. Yeah. And there is actually an edition specific one for real estate agents if you can get your hands on it as well.
It's hard to find. Yeah.
I
read that when I got started just about 6 months before, when I was doing my licensing. Yeah. And it just helped me really understand and set up from the beginning to really understand setting my business up with systems and processes and making sure that it's automated. So that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate it. If our guests can find out what you're up to, what's the best way for them to connect with you? What's the best way for them to see what you're doing?
100%. So connect with me on Instagram or go on my website, www.agentconsulting.ca. And all the links are there. They can book a call with me there. Everything is on there.
Awesome. So they can follow you on social and watch your stories, because you'll have some good stuff
100%.
on there.
100%.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being on here. Thank you for sharing that content. It's definitely a great approach, because I haven't had anyone talking about stories, and now I got to start looking at my own, because I don't really use stories and I need to. So that's awesome. So we really appreciate that.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's great. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out today's episode. If you'd like more videos like this, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Facebook page and our other social media channels. Looking forward to bringing you more great content like this, and happy farming.